Hello and welcome to an all new episode of the Up the Coast podcast. As always, I am your host, Tyler. And in this final week of the regular season, it is just going to be one segment. I am joined by Brian Horace of DukeBlogger.com, and we are just going to dive deep into this 28 and 2 Duke roster. Brian, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we did a Carolina guest and Tate Frazier last week. If people haven't listened to that yet, go back and catch it. We need to counterbalance ahead of this game. But Brian, I do want to start right after that, though, because we did get the news today that the ACC is flipping the bracket. No surprise, as soon as they announced that it was going to be determined TV times, it was a pretty good guess that either Duke or North Carolina was going to end up at night. And with both of them on the same side of the bracket, it's the least shocking thing ever that that'll be the 7 o'clock and 9:30 games, respectively, on Thursday night next week. But what do you think about this? This seems to be rubbing some Duke fans the wrong way.
I don't mind it. I mean, it's all about eyeballs. I'm fine with it, honestly. It doesn't you know, whether it's this or something else, it's you just got to win the games that are in front of you at the times you're given. I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, people, because basically, I guess the whole thing is just that they get the later semifinal on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Whereas, I mean, they're going to have more rest than whoever they play in that game anyway.
exactly. It's not a big deal. I think people get a little bit too up in arms about something that tiny when honestly it's gonna, and I think in the end it'll be beneficial.
So, we know the top four seeds already. It's Duke 1, Virginia 2, Miami 3, Carolina 4. But everything else is really a complete mess down below that. Is there anybody who might end up in that 8-9 game that you feel like you wouldn't want Duke to have to play? Or at this point, are they just such a cut above the middle class of this league that it won't matter?
Yeah, at this point, I'm not really super worried about that. I mean, they've shown, aside from a small portion of the season where they had about 3 or 4 games where the defense was just completely off, that they can pretty much manhandle any of the lesser teams in the ACC. Nothing I'm really worried about. They're firing pretty much at all cylinders. It shouldn't matter, honestly. It really shouldn't.
No, Florida State, they looked terrible when they played them.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
like a couple years ago, though, it feels like at this point.
Exactly. They were going through a little bit of a stretch. Florida State has some good things about that team. I mean, the shooting's really good. You know, Lux is a good coach and all that, but I still don't think they really have the horses to beat Duke at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I'd think of really is SMU, but if BJ Edwards is going to be out any longer, that's not going to happen. But
Yeah, again, that's another team that they looked much better earlier in the season. I'm not really super worried about them either. They have some horses on offense, but I don't think they really defensively they can really stop Duke. So again, nothing I'm super worried about. It's only that top half of the bracket that worries me.
so a team that Duke does need to be worried about, who they will catch before this tournament, the North Carolina Tar Heels, and it's it's a weird spot because this game honestly means nothing for the postseason. Seeds are locked in. Duke's going to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament no matter what. North Carolina, I guess if they win at Cameron, could potentially move up a line, but it's probably not going to matter that much. But this is where the rivalry really means something. And even as
Exactly.
rosters changes, the energy around this game, because I mean, I'm just trying to think of other teams in this general vicinity of the rankings. Like if Michigan was playing Illinois on Saturday, I mean, maybe they care just for pride's sake and to get some momentum, but that could easily be a throwaway game. I think especially the fact that Duke lost in the way that they did in Chapel Hill and the fact that they're going, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it, but they're going to be hell bent on not getting swept basically just for sake of their own pride. And the Caleb Wilson rumors of him potentially returning just because he wants to try to sweep Duke. It seems like we're going to get full energy from this game, but what do you want to see differently from the Blue Devils in this one from the first iteration?
Well, obviously, I think the first thing is stay the heck out of foul trouble. I mean,
Patrick
excuse me.
Gungba.
Yeah, he and both, Boozer both need to really guard the basketball better, defend without fouling. That's been something that's kind of been an Achilles heel for Duke, at certain parts of the season. But yeah, staying out of foul trouble. If the front line can stay out of foul trouble, I think Duke is fine. Other than that, obviously defending Wilson, which I think he's going to play. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he plays. Um, but keeping him off the boards, I don't think he's going to have near the offensive game he had at home. At least I hope not, because kid's a baller. He can really his whew, if he's hitting his jump shot, it's gonna be a tough out for Duke. But for Duke, really, honestly, just stay out of foul trouble, play your game, and you win that game.
Yeah, it seemed to me this whole time as Wilson just keeps saying Duke game, Duke game, Duke game, that unless the team doctor goes to Hubert Davis in the next 24 hours and says, "Hey, you absolutely cannot put this kid on the court," like it would be straight up malpractice as his coach to expose him to action. It seems like he's going to find a way to go.
Without a doubt. But then there's that piece of it. Let's say he plays, he re-injures that hand, and he's out for the tournament. I mean, I would be worried about that as well. If he's 100%, by all means, play him. But if he's not 100%, what are you really gaining? If you're Hubert Davis, other than a possible sweep of Duke, which is great, but like is it worth losing in the early rounds of the NCAA tournament? Probably not.
I feel like this is Wilson's decision though, and you just you hear all the stories of him in high school and just wanting to beat Boozer, and that was the guy that he was chasing, and maybe that's why he's even at North Carolina. And it just seems like such a personal pride thing for him, and just what it would mean to knock Duke off of that number one spot and to be able to say that they owned this team. Although I get the feeling if Carolina wins this game on Saturday, they're going to meet again next Friday, and Duke is not going to let it get to 3-0.
Yeah, that there's no possible way that happens. Not with this team. I can't see it. But yeah, I mean, I get, Wilson being a competitor, but going along with being a competitor, you also have to be smart. Your ultimate goal is to win the NCAA tournament. That is the goal for every college basketball player that plays. Is it worth the risk? If he can't do any more damage to the hand and he can play, by all means, Wilson, go at it, do your thing. But if the shoe was on the other foot and Boozer had a broken hand and it was, there's a possibility he could hurt himself before the tournament, I'm sitting him. It's just, you know, it's the way it's
Yeah.
happened with Cooper Flag last year. It was worth it to sit him.
Well, and Cooper Flag last year also changed the trajectory of the Duke team and possibly Con Knippel's entire basketball career because we got that ACC tournament to discover, like, oh, this guy might have been one of the five best players in the country if he wasn't stuck playing with one of the few guys who is actually better than him on his own team.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at it that way, yes. Khan, his reputation definitely benefited from Coop being out for a little bit. But I think, Khan was still shining all year long. I mean, the kid was fantastic, but yeah, it did give him a little bit more of the spotlight and showed that he could also, lead this team as well, or lead that team.
Yeah, I mean, think about the difference though, because in like late January, early February, I was spouting that this guy was like a low top 10 pick. And that was even a controversial opinion at the time. He just seemed like someone who was going to just be a career catch and shoot guy. And I think especially people who didn't realize how great of an athlete he was. But that ACC tournament to watch him just running the offense, at that point, the idea of him being a top five pick, well, at that point, it became realistic. And then about a month later, it became idiotic to think of him as anything less than that.
Yeah, I think watching him in high school a little bit as I did, and actually speaking with a lot of his family members before he actually got to Duke, they knew this already. Like they were like, Khan can be a one and done. And I'm like, you sure about that? And they're like, we're sure about that. And yeah, being able to see him actually use his his ability to play both sort of a swing man and also be a point forward and the kid has basketball smarts. I mean, he comes from a basketball family. It was just it was awesome to see and there's nothing that he can't do, which is, I think we get hung up so much on athleticism and not enough on smarts when athleticism can wane. If you're a smart basketball player, you're not going to lose that. So,
Yeah, and you got another smart basketball player this year, and Isaiah Evans, who thank God he came back to school because it really seemed like he wanted to go to the draft, and him being like the 32nd pick and getting buried in the G League would not have been good for him. But we'll touch on him later because I'm
sure.
going to take him, Boozer, and Patrick Gungba out of the equation now. For
Okay.
Duke to win the national title, the most important remaining player is who?
Caleb Foster. I think all year long, we've heard a lot about Duke having point guard problems, but I think Caleb Foster, and since the month of February started, I think he was, and I might get this wrong by a turnover or an assist, but he's been like 34, 35, and like eight. I mean, he had it's like an insane assist to turnover ratio since February started. I think that's been sort of the underrated stat that's helped this Duke team is that he's not turning the ball over. He's been more aggressive on offense, but I think moreover he's played a terrific floor game since February, and I think that's the underlying one of the underlying reasons why Duke has been so successful. In addition to obviously their defense.
Yeah, he's 29 to 5 assists to turnover if you start after the Carolina game.
There you
So the current 7 game win streak. But yeah, I mean, I my point guard questions with Duke died in the first Louisville game.
go.
When Foster and Isaiah Evans just completely took over in the second half. And honestly, a lot of my Duke defense questions died that day too when Dame Sarr just took out Ryan Conwell. It even 2 months later, and even with Louisville being as disappointed as they are, that still feels like the game to me that kind of changed this team.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the game where you really saw that Sarr was this defensive force, and and that's carried Duke defensively for honestly since then. I mean, he's been the guy that if you talk to any Duke player to a man, they credit his defense picking up full court, guarding the best player. That's been sort of one of the turning points for this year.
When you think about all of the best players in the country here, and Duke having Foster, Sarr, and Malik Brown across the positional spectrum, is there any guy that you feel like one of those three can't just take out of a game?
I don't. I really think, with that positional size and the fact that they've all bought in on that end of the floor, I think they can take anybody out of a game.
Yeah, I mean that's the amazing thing about this team, and three guys who really just have not gotten a ton of credit. I feel like Malik Brown's stock has dropped this year, and part of that is just because Gungba and Boozer have been so good that you just can't play Malik Brown huge minutes. But and this is still the number one ranked defense in Ken Palm. Like you said, Boozer's had some of his issues on the defensive end, despite being a guy that you would think should be a major piece over there. But yeah, that's the problem with having doing a Duke segment. That's why I gotta wait so long in the year because there's not holes to poke into this team anymore. Once Caleb Foster got going, but we'll talk about my guy because I own a ton of stock. I've talked about it like 7 times on this show. I know it's not coming this year, but can we just get one awesome Nick Hamania game in March? I just need it for momentum's sake going into next year.
I think we might see something like that in the ACC tournament, maybe. That's the thing about this team. if Nick's having a bad game, they'll put in Dame. If Dame's having a bad game, now they can throw in Darren Harris. So, it's certainly possible Nick may have one of those games. He's up and down, but you kind of expect that from a freshman. But I still wouldn't want him any other place but Durham.
I mean, he just has such incredible vision and instincts
Yeah,
for
he
such
really
a
does.
young player. And I just watch him and I can't figure out why he's not better. And then I realize, oh, he's just not that good at all of these things that are completely teachable.
Yeah, and again, we're so used to seeing superstars as freshmen that when a normal freshman is there, even he may even be an above, you know, player for a freshman. We're just used to seeing flags and knipples and players that are above that as freshmen. So it's hard. He gets graded on that curve, even though he's a good freshman.
Patrick Gungba is the best passing Duke center. I'm going to say center because we got to take like flag out of this equation. It's the best Duke passing center since who?
Whew. Oh, that's tough.
Which, if we had talked about this in October, I would have said, oh well, I guess he might be a little bit better than Malawach at that. I'm still just amazed by how good of a distributor he became.
Yeah, I don't know if Duke's really used the position in that way. I think Shire's doing something that Coach K really didn't do. Using the center position up top like that to be able to see over the defense. I think that's a unique Shire thing. I mean, you look at the Duke centers of the past, and they were camped down in the middle, so really there was no need for them to be, superb passers. They weren't really getting double teamed or anything like that. But I think to bring, Gongba at the top of the key and have him distribute and run the offense, that's a unique Shire thing. I don't think, K never did that. Like that wasn't a K thing.
I mean, it's kind of a change in the game too. And Common Malawach, who did in a little bit of a way feel like a vestige of an old era.
Mm.
That rim running, diving center, not really all that effective at doing anything outside of 6 feet away from the basket, although he could guard out there, but it does feel like this is Duke coming into the modern times with this essentially reverse offense where their two best playmakers are the big guys.
Yeah, I think Shire's done a good job. And one thing I did think he inherited from K is really tailoring the offense around the players instead of trying to get the players to run a particular offense. I think I mean, he's watched Gong obviously since he was a kid. He knows his abilities as a passer. And I think once Gongba got here, he realized, okay, well, this is how we need to use him because that's what he's good at. And I think that's what Shire doesn't get a lot of credit for, is tailoring Duke around what they have instead of trying to fit, force fit guys into a particular role.
I mean, I still don't feel like this is a best team in the country level roster. And yet every bit of analytics tells us it's one of the best of all time. And so that's where Shire's entire coach of the year case comes from. Yes, he got Cam Boozer. Yes, Cam Boozer was going to be awesome, even if you gave him an idiot for a coach. But the growth in Patrick Gungba, the growth in Caleb Foster, that's the argument here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even with the, arguably the best player in college basketball or one of them, you still have to have a roster that complements him, a roster that can perform without him and with him. And so I think that's where, like you said, you have to give him credit for that. I mean, no one playing on this roster or, in that starting lineup was a heavy minutes person last year. So there's growth there, and you've seen that growth. Isaiah obviously was a catch and shoot guy for the most part. Now he's playing defense. Foster is the cemented as the point guard now. Gongba obviously was playing behind Malawach. Now he is as effective, if not more effective in different ways than Malawach. So you really got to hand it to the guy. He has really worked the development angle of being a coach more than people thought he could.
Yeah, I mean, I laughed at the idea of Patrick Gungba being a potential lottery pick in the summer, and I haven't looked at the board. Everyone just wants to talk about the top like 7 or 8 guys, so I don't know what the lottery-ish looks like, but this was a guy who I would have said it's maybe 50-50. He could have gotten into the first round. just not seeing what was coming from him. But I mean, it is amazing. Isaiah Evans just seems like the quintessential guy now that you just take with like the 22nd pick.
Exactly. I mean,
And like the Spurs or someone smart takes him. And we all just realize in the moment, like, oh God, the seven teams that drafted in front of him were idiots.
yeah, I mean, you have to look at it that way. Gongba has shown that, like, obviously he hasn't played, 40 minutes a game or thirty minutes a game, but he still shows you in the time that he's in there that Duke needs him, in both his ability to see over defenses, make pinpoint passes, get great touch around the rim. He's slimmed his frame down. He's more athletic now than he was last year. I mean, there's a lot to like there. You look at a guy like Jokic, not saying anything about Gonga being a Jokic type player, but as far as passing ability, you have to like that in a player like him to make those sorts of passes that like make Jokic such an unbelievable weapon in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can go anywhere near Jokic
No,
with
no, no, no.
Gungba. I don't even think we can go to Sabonis. I'm trying to think of like a good athlete or I guess elite athlete who's still a good passer at the center position. Like a maybe a little Al Horfordishness. It's not a great one. Horford's a way better shooter, but there's actually just not that many archetypes in the league.
Exactly,
You
which I think is fine. I think the league depends too much on having an archetype and not just seeing the value in what one person can do. We don't need to see the next this or that. You just say, okay, well, this guy can do these things. We can use these things. I mean, I think that's a much better, argument for him being a mid-first rounder than he plays like Jokic or he plays like Horford.
Yeah, I mean, most of the centers who are like B plus passers are just not great athletes. It's like a Mo Wagner type. And
Yeah,
Gungba's a way better defensive player. He's just far more mobile than someone like that. Or Luke Cornett.
yeah. I mean, I don't see why you don't take a player like Gungba, as a high pick because he can do a lot of different things. I mean, yeah, I can't think of many players that have his skill level at that size, at that athleticism. But yeah, his passing is impressive, and he's got that touch around the rim that's just beautiful to watch, honestly.
Oh, and I finally got it. It's Naz Reid, but Gungba's just not as good of a 3-point shooter.
Not yet, not yet.
Yeah,
But
that's the
if
comp.
you watch his tape, his mechanics are good. He shot it fairly well in high school. He just didn't really get the opportunities to do that in game at Duke, and I think that's probably best. But I think he can be a Nas Reed. I don't think Nas Reed came into the league shooting that well. I think it took a year or two for him to be deadly from that range. And I think Reed is probably a little bit more athletic right now, obviously, than Gongba is. But again,
Gungba's bigger though.
yeah, bigger
So,
for
all
sure.
right, we'll pull it back on track here. So, for Duke to accomplish everything that they want here, they're going to have to close the year on a 17 game win streak. They're at seven already. Beat Carolina, three in the ACC tournament to make the treble a possibility. Although I'm sure they would probably throw that one away of any of the three trophies, and then six in the NCAA tournament. But for this team to finally break through, for them to win the national championship, for Jon Scheyer to finally receive his level of vindication, because let's be honest, we're about 3 years away from him really starting to take he can't win the big one crap if he doesn't win a title between probably now and 2030. But what's the key? What is the number one biggest thing that Duke has to execute on to win the title?
It's a good question. Well, the one thing is I'm not worried about his defense. So I think for them, just being able to run their offense effectively, regardless of whether it's in the half court or if you're playing an up and down game. I think obviously when you get to the tournament, you're going to be playing a lot of different styles of basketball. And Duke comes in with a reputation of not really being a team that wants to speed it up. So and I think teams are going to want to try to, speed the game up for them. if they can adjust to that style if they need to and execute, then I think that they should not have many issues because I think defense travels, offense can be iffy if they can adjust to playing either version of themselves. Either it's the slow it down version, which they did against Michigan a little bit, or if they can speed the game up when they need to. If they can do that, I think they can get there.
It does feel like they need a hot march from someone who's not named Isaiah Evans, whether it's basically Foster, Boozer, or Sarr, although I guess Darren Harris has to be factored in as part of the equation now after their name game.
Yeah, I think we'll know more about Darren Harris in the ACC tournament. I think if he can get a little run there and make some shots there, then yeah, I think that raises sort of the ceiling for this team a little bit.
All right, last question for you.
Mhm.
Cameron Boozer or Cooper Flag?
I hate those comparisons. I've been saying it all week. Comparison is the thief of joy. If you're saying which one I want on my team, it depends on my team makeup. If I
Well,
need a
that's the
big,
cop out because they both make more sense on their specific teams.
exactly, which is why comparing them for me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It depends on my team. Just like if I'm drafting a player, if I already have two good point guards, do I want to draft Darius Acuff? Well, no, I want to draft a different position. So it's like, it's rough. If I have to make a choice, I'll say Flag just because I think defensively he's better. And I think he can play both. He's more of
Defensively,
a,
he is better.
yeah, he can play, both sides of the basketball a little better than Boozer. Make me say it. I don't want to have to say it, but yes.
All right, do you want to close on some joy then? I'll give you the alternate question.
Okay. Well,
All-time Duke freshman starting five.
oh, so we're just going by the freshmen. Okay.
Yeah, like of their freshman year. So like
I got you.
JJ, you don't get to count in you don't get to count in how great he was at the end.
Right, right. All right. Well, I'm going to start with it might surprise some people, but at my five, I'm actually going to put Malawach. I like what he brings as a rim runner. At the five, I'm going to put Boozer. Or sorry, four Boozer, my bad. Three Flag. I'm going to put, ooh, God, I really love Khan shooting. Uh, I'm going to have to put Khan in there. I know this is limiting me. And then as my point, I know he only played 8 games, but I'm going to go with Kyrie. Because in those 8 games, he was unstoppable.
So okay, so if I make you go pre-2000 with your sixth man, who is it?
Wait, if I go pre what now?
If I make you go pre-2000 for your sixth man, who are you adding on?
Oh, easily. Leitner.
Okay.
Even
He
his
gets
freshman year, he was amazing.
well, he gets boxed out now because you can't have him, Flag, and Boozer all out there together. Although
Well,
you could maybe just play
if
Flag
we're
at center.
yeah, we could we could switch guys. I mean, we're playing 4 out, 5 out. We're good. We're good.
All right, so it's a modern five: Kyrie, Con Knipple, Cooper Flag, Cameron Boozer, Common Malawach. The only person who's going to be insulted by this is Mike Krzyzewski because you only took one of his guys, but
Michael understand.
he hasn't listened to this.
You never know.
No, actually he is crazy enough to have found this show. It's possible. All right, Coach K, if you're listening, reach out on your burner. You don't even have to tell us it's you. Just give us a like. But Brian, as we head into this postseason, we're going to need more and more Duke coverage as there are less and less teams outside of the Blue Devils to pay attention to. Where can all the listeners find you?
Yeah, I mean the site is dukeblogger.com, but more actively on all the socials, you name it, whether you call it X or Twitter or Blue Sky or Instagram or Facebook, I'm all over there. I love having conversations, debates. Let's do it anytime.
Yeah, everyone go and follow Brian. And thank you for joining me.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone else for listening. Be sure to come back Tuesday morning. We're going to give some ACC awards picks. We're going to do an ACC tournament preview. And we're going to talk bracketology, SMU, Virginia Tech, Cal, How are their bubble cases looking going into Charlotte? Be sure to tune in for that.